Hey everyone, Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer here. Welcome back to Rock Your Midlife, where we are giving you fantastic tips and techniques to help you make the most of midlife. And I'm always excited about guests, but this woman is a woman after my own heart because she loves to exercise. She has been a speaker and fitness expert for over 30 years. She's a speaker, she's a coach, she is an entrepreneur, and she is an energy manager. She has amazing credentials. She has both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in exercise science, tons of credentials as a personal fitness trainer. And what I really love about her, not only does she walk her walk, so she's got an amazing rocking body that she's not afraid to say, hey, this is me at 50 plus. I look amazing. She's motivational. She is fun. And she covers topics from how to lose, that belly fat to how to have beautiful skin with a ton of humor, motivation, and energy. Welcome to the program, Debra Atkinson. Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's good to be here. So tell me a little bit about your own transformational journey. I found that most of the women I've talked to have had, themselves.
Oh, yes. So absolutely. So, you said I've been in the fitness industry for 30 years, 36. This is number 36, actually. And, I thought I got it. I thought I was kind of an older, wiser soul, even in my younger years. So I had the good fortune of being raised by older parents and being around older siblings all my life, significantly older. And I think that was a real benefit, even though I didn't necessarily appreciate it at the time. But when I turned 49, I, had success. I loved every job that I'd had, but I wanted to have a bigger reach. I just felt like it was either time I was going to settle and stay right there, and that would have been okay, or I was going to get out of my comfort zone and go and do something bigger. And I felt like I had the desire, so I had the responsibility to do it. So when I did it, the day after I handed in that resignation letter, I panicked. I had college tuition coming up in 8 months for my son. I was like, what if I don't reach more people and I reach no people? And what if I run out of money? And so all the things, at 49, whether or not I was having hot flashes or night sweats, and I wasn't. But we know hormone imbalance is starting to happen under the hood regardless, because the average age of menopause is 51. So wherever it happens, you've got stuff changing. And I became, instead of somebody who exercised for 10 to 14 hours a week, naturally, somebody who might let herself away from the computer, where I was trying to now learn a digital business for 20 minutes a day, and that was about it for over a year. And what I realized was I was actually in better shape. I was stronger. I looked healthier. And, people were commenting like, what are you doing? And I was like, are you kidding? This is just so backwards. So I dug into the research to find out what had happened for me. And what I realized was there's so very little research out there on exercise for women, 39%. Now, that may sound like that's close to half, right? But the problem is we go through 7, if we choose to, or fortunate enough to, depending on how you look at it, 7 hormonal changes in our lives that change the way we should exercise. So no matter where you are as a woman, there's a very small fraction of research that actually is about how you should or shouldn't exercise for optimal benefit, to avoid injuries, to have the most energy, and to get the most benefits. So it's what I began to really focus on, especially for women in midlife, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And like so many of us do, selfishly, that's where I focused first. But I'd realized, when I was working with adolescents, teenagers who wanted training, we were not catering to females, differently enough than we were to males or to women as they went through prenatal or postnatal changes. The physical changes, yes, but we weren't necessarily catering to hormonal changes. And that was the missing piece. So that's how it all evolved. And now it's just become such a bigger mission. It's not just about the exercise. It's about the fact that there is no one more powerful or influential in the world than a midlife woman. We influence 3 generations, maybe more, right? But our children, our spouses, friends, and our parents or in-laws or outlaws, depending on how you think about it. And no one else can say that in the world. And they're watching what we do. Women influence over 85% of all household purchases. And that includes your health, your fitness, what you're doing, they're watching. And I think we need to capitalize on that for
It's
ourselves.
such an
Yeah.
empowering thought, because I think there's a sense, and I work with women at midlife as a coach,
Yep.
and there's a sense that, I'm washed up, my body's going south, but it's so true. What you're saying is, not only are there a lot of us, but we influence our kids, and we influence the people who are our age, and then we influence our parents, and we can have a huge impact. So if you're listening, you're thinking, well, you know what, I can make those changes when I was younger, but I can't do it now. You've got a big chunk of life, and you've got experiences, and you can do a ton for your energy. I love what you said about the research. I think it's interesting too, because we grew up with Title IX, right? So we were like the first girls that were like, I know I ran out for track. It was the first time that we didn't have a cross country team for girls. So we ran with the boys, but that was all of this interesting that we don't have a lot of research. So I'm really curious, what is ideal? So for women who are listening in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s, in terms of exercise, and we talked off the air a little bit about less is more. What's the optimal amount that women should be exercising at midlife?
Great. Well, and even for us, so we want to look at us and we want to say, okay, so should every woman in perimenopause or in menopause or postmenopause do exactly the same? So we can throw the formula on, but it's really a blueprint. It's not like you can go pick up the best-selling diet or the best-selling menu for exercise and say, okay, that's what I should do. There should be an if this, then that quiz. Just like those Teen Magazine quizzes we all used to do. If you say yes to this, okay, you're going over here, right? And then if you say yes to this, you're going over here. So it's a little bit more like listen to your body. So there's some just solid, good advice and common sense, but we've been brainwashed. So the first thing you really got to adhere to is a couple of things that fall into my creed for flipping 50. And number one is restore before more. So there is no way you're going to build up your energy. You're going to get better and stronger and feel good if you're already exhausted. So stop trying to exercise yourself deeper into that hole. And I think that does a couple of things. Number one, it's going to free up a little time and energy that you can spend on you, but it also frees up a lot of guilt. So I think there are a lot of midlife women walking around out there who are tired. We're just juggling so many things, whether it's our perception of all things that we are in charge of and shoulder, or it's literally we're juggling a lot of roles. We do, but we feel guilty when we're not exercising. And even that is somewhat detrimental to our optimal energy and health. So if we can let go of the fact that, hey, busy actually may be a blessing. And I heard you and I both, right, talking in the green room before we started, we love exercise. We could be our own worst enemy, right? So we could easily over exercise. If you love exercise and I use exercise to negate my stress level, we're probably the ones most likely to overdo it in a way that leaves us more tired, more drained, more cortisol, the stress hormone. And so we're not going to be able to optimally find our ideal energy or our ideal weight. And I don't want to make it all about weight, but that is one of the first reasons women will reach for health. So I think we all have to admit that. And I want to meet everybody where they are and then hope that we can get you codependent and that you continue exercise because it feels great and you feel stronger mentally and physically.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're saying less is really more. And in particular, if you throw in there that women are having trouble with sleep,
Yep.
We're juggling a lot. But I want to say this too, if you are listening, your diet plays a much more important role in your weight than exercise does. We think we think that, you know, I've got to exercise myself like crazy if I want to lose weight. Exercise is great for you. And as Debra was saying, it's really important for the stress reduction. We want to keep the muscle mass up. We want to be healthy. We want to have healthy hearts. It's fun. It feels great, but it's not the golden ticket for weight loss, because think about it. You can have one scoop of ice cream, 500 calories, and you'd have to be exercising for an hour. So really you want to look at your diet too. So if someone's just starting out, they're thinking about what's the right combination. Like for me, I'm always thinking, I don't have quite your background in exercise physiology, but I was a personal trainer, and it was always thinking about, okay, cardio, strength training, and flexibility. And for myself, I do these days, I don't beat my body up the way that I used to. I just can't. I'm like trying to preserve my joints. But how does someone figure out what they should be doing?
Good. Well, the good rule of thumb is, number one, you want to ignore everything you've learned for the last 30 years. So recently did a TED Talk titled Why Everything Women in Menopause Learned About Exercise May Be a Lie. And so part of that goes back to the research that none of the exercise programs, the textbook that trained trainers and got you certified, didn't cater to women. So we were basing all those guidelines on an average group of people, a lot of them made up of very healthy young men. Mm-hmm. Whatever would make us think that works for young 25-year-old men at the peak of muscle mass works for women 55 at the peak of essentially fat storage, right? That's crazy when you hear it said out loud. So the best answer is throw out traditional, conventional exercise that says we all need a quota of X amount of cardio sessions a week and X amount of strength training sessions a week. So question everything about your exercise and question, is that based on women just like me? So here's the answer. Strength training is the first thing we're going to talk about, because that is a girl's best friend, definitely after the age of 50. And for any of you who are right here and you're watching, you influence younger women in your life somewhere. Get them into the weight room and get them comfortable doing it younger, and they will get here where we are now in better shape already, and they'll smoothly sail through it in a way we haven't. So we need to turn around and pass that on. But what you want to be doing is twice a week strength training is optimal. So do full body workouts. Don't let somebody convince you to do a body part on Monday and a different body part on Tuesday, because unless you have hours every day to spend in the gym and you want to stand on a stage and flex your body naked, and not to be condescending to those women who do, but that is really not helpful. And most of us have time stress as it is, and it's difficult to find time to fit it in. So 2 times a week strength training, reaching muscular fatigue, and we can talk about that detail in a second. But then your cardio, you need to ditch that cardio queen mentality. 1980 called and wants that back. Okay. So interval training, yes. And the new term in the last 6 months, studies come out that actually are calling it sprint interval training as well, putting us on bikes where we can preserve the joints. And you alluded to that earlier, right? We don't do as much high impact or necessarily do a lot of cardio, but we can do sprint interval training. And the benefit of that, just like high intensity interval training has been known for burning fat, will help with that. But it also, and this is an anomaly when we talk about exercise that gets us breathless, has supported lean muscle mass. So that's rarely heard of, but if you are doing it correctly, it will. So these sprint intervals are more like 8 seconds super fast and hard, and 12 seconds easy and recovery. And you're on an exercise bike, so there's less pressure on your knees and your hips and ankles, typically places where we're most concerned about in that lower body as we age. So doing that 2 or 3 times a week for, I don't know, but no more than 45 minutes total is advantageous. And there's kind of that spot where mentality used to be, if a little is good, more must be better, right? Not so true. So we really have that sweet spot. We need the Goldilocks where benefits are high Exhaustion is low, risk of injury is low, and then you can fill in with low and moderate kinds of exercise. So if you love to go for walks, you can fill that in and do that. You can fill your afternoon or evening with gardening or, walking a golf course. If you enjoy any kind of activity is good. You can do your yoga or stretching, and we do need to hold on to that mobility. So that one rule hasn't changed. Nobody is overstretching, a little bit like nobody's overeating vegetables.
Yeah, well, that makes sense in terms of the cardio. So you want to stress things just a little bit so that
Right.
tells your body to regenerate and grow things in a different way. So that is great advice. But now when
Mhm.
we're strength training, do you recommend doing lighter weights and more reps or heavier weights, some
No.
combination of both? What's best?
I recommend heavy if you can. And if you can't, then we deal with that. But if you can, there is every reason why you should be doing it, sister. So
Good.
in all of the literature, so right, that we're talking about all of the narrowed down literature that does cater to women in perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, two of the most popular terms that appear over and over and over is exercise of adequate intensity. So we're not seeing that because you're 50 or because you're 60 that you should be slowing down and coddling yourself. In fact, the opposite is true. It's just don't do it for hours a week. So you can look and feel as good as you want to when you're 50, 60, or 70, as long as you don't try to exercise as you did when you were 30, right? So important things to remember. But we do want to, and this comes back to stress. So it comes back to the cortisol. If you think about how are we supposed to be stressed? We often say stress is just terrible, and we play the bad Piper song when it comes to that. But if you don't have any, you're dead, right? I mean, all the meaningful things and people in our lives lead us to stress. They give us stress. And we used to, have a life where we had periods of short bursts of stress and then it was over. Unfortunately, today we're constantly connected. We're constantly bombarded with messages, and we're on call. We have these cell phones right next to us all the time. And we're stressed most of the time, and we're not used to it as far as our body and evolution go. We have adapted to thinking that's normal, but normal is not necessarily a good thing. So when you exercise more optimally, you're giving yourself those short bits of stress, and then you're letting your body recover. And that's really how you were meant to use stress. So you can help yourself become more resilient by controlling small bits of stress, where during the intervals you get breathless, where during the strength training you reach muscular fatigue.
That's great advice. Well, it's good for me to know because I like to push 20-pound dumbbells. And part of it is just too, because when I go in an airplane, I want to be able to put my luggage up. It's about being functional. I think that's a big shift at midlife, that, you still want to look nice in a bathing suit, but it's that's not the big issue. The issue is I want to feel good. I want to be functional. I want to be around for my grandkids. I want to be able to climb up a mountain with no problem. I want to be able to go on a walkathon and do all those things. So for people who are listening, I get this all the time. People who, we're talking a lot about people who are maybe overdoing, but I know a lot of people who are listening aren't doing much at all. And they're in that kind of guilt place. They feel they have to do so much. What's your recommendation? How do you start? How do you get motivated? How do you, even think about going into gym? And I know I want to talk a lot about your resources too, because I'm not sure where the world's going to be at when this is recorded, but a lot of us, need to stay home. And I love working out at home. I have dumbbells from 5s all the way up to 25s. I don't have to go to the gym. And I'm good. But I guess that first question is, how does somebody even start, particularly when they don't feel good with their body? They have all of these, they've failed so many times, started, stopped with diets, with exercise programs. And when they face it, it's this sense of, gosh, I failed so much in this arena. I don't even want to go there. And so they end up doing nothing. How do you motivate people to get started?
Oh, there were so many great nuggets in there. I could dive into any one of those. So number one, I think the biggest thing that emerged that I want to make sure we hit is enjoy it. So, we've all failed before at something, right? So anything we start and do for the first time, we're not going to be good at. Give yourself room to let that sink in. So if you were talking to a friend or you were talking to a child explaining something they were doing for the very first time, they wouldn't be good at it. And so if you failed at exercise, first of all, come back to the very beginning of when we started talking, Ellen, a lot of the research was not based for you, on you. So maybe the system failed you, not the other way around. So if you can put that on, but we also, I don't know about you, but in the past, had I not had my discovery by accident that less is more, my intuition and my education would both have said to me, if I was experiencing a need for weight loss or getting rid of belly fat, I would have exercised more and longer and harder, right? And so if that's your default, it's normal because that's how we've been conditioned for 30 or 35 years. But let go of the fact that that might be it and realize that by doing that, we kind of make the conclusion that doing something uncomfortable that we despise and don't feel good doing will ultimately lead us to a place where we love and feel good and energetic. How is that even possible, right? That's insanity when you think about it.
Yeah,
So
we've
let
got this
yourself
idea.
enjoy it.
Yeah, this
Right.
idea that exercise is punitive.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm like you. I mean, exercise is my way I procrastinate. I'll like, when you sit down and write for 45 minutes, you can do a set of push-ups, right? But we have to get away from this idea that it's punitive, that it is fun. I mean, something, if you're listening and thinking, how do you start? I mean, I always love going through your why. What is your why? And then dig deeper. What's your why for that? And what's your why for that? Get really clear on your why. I want to be healthy. I want to be there for my grandkids or my kids. I want to have energy. Yeah, I want to have more confidence. I want to feel good about my body. I want to be able to go on an airplane and put my bag up without a problem. And then also make it fun. As you were saying, do something that's fun, take a Zumba class. Your videos are super fun. Do something that's fun. And if you can, also make it social. So I think it's great to have like an accountability buddy or hire a fun trainer or, go out and walk. Or I personally just joined a yoga collective, which I love. They have 3 studios. They have like 60 classes a week. And I'm doing yoga like 4 or 5 times a week, which I've really, really been enjoying. But make it social, make it fun, and get away from this idea that exercise is punishment for something that you did sometime in your life, and really dig into Debra's resources. Can you talk a little bit about your resources, and if you have a gift or a way that people can connect with you? Because you have an incredible library for everything. Again, we didn't get into talking about skin, but I loved reading about how to get your skin beautiful. Tell us about your resources and how people can really have someone like with your expertise in their home.
Absolutely. Yeah. And convenience is such a big piece of it. So if you're not comfortable exercising right now, starting at home can make it much more comfortable. Nobody's watching you. You're in your own space and it's convenient. We're all under that time stress. So I have what I call a 5-day flip, and it's 5 short days, 5 short videos, one a day, 15, 20 minutes long, where you get to experience those 2 times of strength training, those 2 times of interval training, and a recovery day, in fact, of a little bit of stretching and yoga and core exercise. So you can convince yourself, I do have time, and that this does feel better. When I do it in small doses, it's just a little bit at a time. So that is at flipping50.com. And those are all words spelled out. And you can / the number 5-day flip and get access to that right away. So it's a great thing to do at home and just convince yourself that with minimal equipment, a few dumbbells, or you can go grab those soup cans that we've all got sitting on a shelf somewhere. A can of beans is good. You can exercise, and it's just a matter of treat this like an experiment. Get started, and so just a quick tip, because you mentioned, make it social, but there is something to be said for planning it. So I've given you these 5 days planned. That increases your success rate by 50%. if you tell someone else, so you turn to your friend or your significant other and say, I'm doing this and here's my plan, that increases your odds by 60 some percent. But if you are greedy and you want over 90% success rate, you find a coach and an accountability partner, and you're checking in weekly on the same thing. And maybe if you're doing a 5-day flip, you're checking in daily, saying, I did this one. Text somebody and let them know that. That is a proven way of increasing your success. And you mentioned one other thing, motivation. How do I get motivated? And I'm gonna challenge everybody listening on that one just a little bit. And it just, if you're at home, you can raise your hand. But I mean, do you have kids? Are you married or in a relationship? Are you maybe CEO, or you have an important job? So all of those things are probably very important to you, or any one of them. But are you motivated every day to do all of the things associated with those roles? I think sometimes those are hard, all of them. But the difference is you're committed, right? You are committed to that family, or you're committed on paper, or you're committed to the bank. I don't know. And that's the difference. So if you will commit, even for a short time, 5 days, maybe it's 2 weeks for your 30-day challenge of some kind, commit for that long. So a little bit of discipline and willpower for that long, because once you get to the point where you can say, I've done it, and it feels good to feel good, you no longer are looking for motivation. You have it because you're motivated to find it, find the time to do it, and guard it, because you feel better and more you when you do it than when you don't.
That's a great point of just committing to it, because there are some days that you're not going to want to exercise, but to commit it, to get some kind of accountability partner, and also just to go to your website, because there's that commitment, but you also need to be capable. So go to flipping50.com and do the 5-day challenge. We'll put it in the notes down below. It's a wonderful resource. You will have fun, and you can totally do this. Thank you, Debra, so much for joining us today and giving us so much wisdom. I learned a ton. I did not know. I mean, I was aware of the research, because let's face it, they're researching college men. Like my son, 19-year-old men, not 40, 50-year-old women. So there's research out there that less is more. That's my big takeaway. Commit now. It's going to make a huge difference in your life. Put yourself first. You'll look back and you'll be so happy that you did it. You'll have so much more energy, so much better health. So thank you so much for joining me today. I am Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. I've been talking to Debra Atkinson at Flipping 50. We'll see you tomorrow for great tips to rock your midlife.
Bye.